This is what a judge said. Let's begin. This is about a paragraph and a half, so let's read it carefully. Corruption rating agencies have never been kind to Ghana in their ratings. Full stop. That's the judge's opening remarks in this part. Corruption rating agencies, he says, have never been kind to Ghana in their ratings. As to how ANAS and his team select their subject persons is a matter shrouded in secrecy. But how do they choose their subject persons out of the large number of corrupt Ghanaians? Question mark. All right. As things stand, persons selected may just be the unlucky ones, since some of those not selected may be worse than those selected. Okay, I get it. So he's making the point that ANAS selects people randomly, just selects them randomly anyhow. So he's saying that if you say Ghana is corrupt, then you can select some people who may not be corrupt, but you haven't selected some people who may actually be corrupt also. Let's move on. He says some more interesting things. The president of Ghana, the judge says, and the prime minister of Ivory Coast, who ANAS and his team targeted, are leaders of their nations. They embody the soul and spirit of the nations. They are obliged to lead by example. So if they engage in corrupt acts, journalists like ANAS and indeed any citizen is entitled to expose them. Now, it's interesting here because when we're looking at this case, we knew that it's between ANAS and Kennedy Japan, and it's about Adom-Otchere and the later Meswale and all of that. But this matter is quite interesting. The president of Ghana and the president of Ivory Coast have been targeted. I didn't know until I saw the ruling, but you see how the court comes to that conclusion. All right, let's move on to the next one. It says, however, a preemptively unjustified attack on their credibility, unprovoked by any credible suspicion of a specific act of corruption, engaged in or about to be engaged in by them, such as drawing them into a trap so as to be caught in a contrived corruption setup, as well as was alleged by the defendant, that is Kennedy Japan, and backed by Exhibit KOA4, was unwarranted and devious. Let's look at this word. The judge says that anyone can chase President Akufo-Addo for corruption. You are entitled to do that. What you cannot do is what he's saying ANAS did, which was told to the court by Kennedy, and the court agreeing with him, with Kennedy. This is what they say it did. It is a preemptively unjustified attack on their credibility. If whatever is happening is unprovoked by any credible suspicion of a specific act of corruption engaged in or about to be engaged in by them, such as drawing them into a trap, this is what they say ANAS is doing, to be caught in a contrived corruption, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so what is Exhibit KOA4? Let's look at it. Let's put Exhibit KOA4 there and let's see what is in that exhibit which convinced the court that ANAS was doing something very wrong. All right, this Exhibit KOA4. We don't have the video, but this is what it is. The exhibit is a video. Well, we do have the video, but we don't know whether we have permission to show it, so we're not going to show it. The exhibit is a video covering plaintiff, covering ANAS, one Amache, a sheikh, an Arabian, and a black man. They conversed about efforts to implicate the Ivorian Prime Minister. They talked about sharing some percentages with a president and his family. They also talked about gold. The linkages between the topics discussed was not clear. Okay, so this is the exhibit that the judge relied on. This is one of them. We'll go through all of it. But this Exhibit Exhibit KO4, which he says is talking about this. Let's move on. It continues. In his evidence in chief, Kennedy Japan contended that a meeting in Exhibit KOA4 was to plot to entrap the Prime Minister of Ivory Coast and the President of Ghana. Wow. This is very, very, very serious. If people sat in Dubai, I don't know where, maybe Qatar, maybe Dubai, with some people and decided, and there's a video, if truly the video shows that, decided that we are going to entrap the President of Ghana. And they were being coached on how to do that. That's quite serious. That is very serious. But let's get back to the ruling. Let's get back to the ruling and continue and try and finish because they are indicating to me that my time is up. All right. So the ruling continues. It should be understood that as officers caught by ANAS in his investigations have lost their jobs, an entrapped president may be compelled to resign out of shame or public pressure. That means ANAS, through his investigative antics, can cause the removal of a president. And I like the way the judge puts it. He says ANAS, through his investigative antics, wow, anyway, can cause the removal of a president and thereby append the mandate given to him at the election. This is not investigative journalism. It is investigative terrorism. It is exercise of indirect political power under the cloak of journalism. The serious aspect of this, the serious aspect is that political enemies of a president who could not stand him at the election may hire ANAS to entrap him to undermine his presidency. Enemies of a state can also hire ANAS just to destroy the political hierarchy. That brings up the issue of money. In Exhibit KOA3, the fake sheikh who was hired to work for plaintiff for ANAS talked about the numerous bags of dollars sent to Dubai by ANAS and his team. Defendant Kennedy Japan alleged that ANAS had amassed wealth through corruption. This one is a big matter. Okay, let's take it again, isn't it? The judge says that brings up the issue of money. In Exhibit KOA3, the fake sheikh who was hired to work for the plaintiff talked about the numerous bags of dollars sent to Dubai by ANAS and his team. Kennedy Japan alleged that the plaintiff had amassed, that ANAS had amassed wealth through corruption. Let's look at Exhibit KOA3. What is in that exhibit? Exhibit just means maybe a document they brought to the court. That's all. Don't let the word exhibit confuse you. The lawyers will like you to be confused. Don't mind them. That's a joke, by the way. Exhibit just means the document. All right. KOA3. It says, this is the exhibit. The fake sheikh mentioned the case of Adom-Otchere and the attempt to use him to get to the president to facilitate the establishment of a branch of the Baraka Bank in Ghana. He, the sheikh, revealed that their desire was to meet the president of Ghana, but because they had issues, they had to meet him later. According to him, they planned it very well. So this is Exhibit KOA3. We don't have it, but we don't have the video, but this is what is in the video, where the sheikh is saying, talking about Adom-Otchere and saying that they wanted to meet the president of Ghana. Let's get back to the ruling, the judgment, and finish it up. Okay. All right. So he talked about Exhibit KOA3, where the fake sheikh was hired to do blah, blah, blah. Let's move on. Even if that allegation is discarded, the question remains as to how ANAS and his team get those thousands, if not millions of dollars. ANAS is a lawyer and a journalist. But these professions do not breed dollars from nowhere. If ANAS is being sponsored by internal or external entities, who are they? What are their motives and objectives? Okay, we move on. Does it include tarnishing the images of presidents and prime ministers in our sub-region? If the sponsors are external entities, do they approve of modus operandi of ANAS? Can a journalist from CNN or BBC, out of nothing, lay traps just to implicate the American president or the British Prime Minister for the purpose of grabbing the headline and instilling unwarranted fear in the population? In the populace, he says. Very interesting. The judge sounds quite outraged about the process, that he seemed to have been convinced by the exhibit in Kennedy Japan that this is really what happened. This is what ANAS and his team were doing. That's what the judge said. We have to say in all of these that the High Court's ruling is not the end of the matter. ANAS and his team can appeal to the Court of Appeal, and they may even appeal to the Supreme Court. So in terms of the legal process, we are probably maybe just starting. We are not anywhere yet. We have to put that out as we go through the judgment nonetheless. In any case, if they go to the Court of Appeal, what will be on trial is this judgment. They are not going to retry the matter. They are going to This judgment is what will be on trial at the Court of Appeal. All right, let's move on. We'll finish quickly. Have they ever thought of sending plaintiffs to have they ever thought of sending ANAS to their countries to use same methods to catch people in racist acts, which is a social canker plaguing those societies? In all honesty, the plot by ANAS and his group in Exhibit KOA4 has nothing to do with journalism. That's what the judge said. In all honesty, the plot by ANAS and his group in Exhibit KOA4 has nothing to do with journalism. It was a scheme for grabbing power by the back door and satisfying ANAS's insatiable taste for power, publicity, fame, awards, and rewards. Whoa, whoa, whoa. This is heavy. This one is heavy. He says, all of what happened, everything that we went to conference center to go and see, jumping about, Yachino, Choboe, Wajiskano, dollars. And I've been in the conference center, and when the dollars are through, the judge says, all of those things we did, it was a scheme for grabbing power by the back door and satisfying ANAS's insatiable taste for power, publicity, fame, awards, and rewards. Hey, okay, let me continue. Since the president is an embodiment of the soul of the nation, any unwarranted plot out of nothing to entrap him, the president, to destroy his reputation and undermine his authority is reproachable. The attacks of Kennedy Japan on ANAS on that ground deserve commendation and not condemnation. It's on page 60 and 61. This is the ruling, the judgment of the court, of the High Court. He says Kennedy Japan's thing on ANAS is a condemnation, and it deserves condemnation, commendation and not condemnation.